voiceover, single finger flick gestures. This video is being shot with a iPad mini first generation running the latest software as of June 2016, iOS operating system 9.3.2. This iPad mini does not have a fingerprint identification button, so I am unable to demonstrate using the fingerprint method to unlock the iPhone. And to unlock the iPhone, you can or iPad, you can use the fingerprint method or the method I'm going to show you right now of either hitting the home button or hitting the power button. So I'm going to hit the home button here. Okay.
8:14 p.m.
And then I can simply take 3 fingers and flick the screen to the right to open it.
Screen locked. 8:15 p.m. Page 1 of 2. Photos. FaceTime.
Okay.
Double tap to open.
So the single finger flick gestures. The best place to practice these is on the home screen. First, we're going to talk about the simple gesture of taking your finger and just moving it around the screen to find out where you are. So you simply just drag your finger around.
Calendar. Set photos. Maps.
As you move it,
Double tap to open.
as you move your finger, it will announce whatever is underneath it.
Photo booth. Game center. Videos. Camera. Double tap to open.
This is the best way, one of the best ways to find out where you are. One technique to keep in mind is quickly going to an item in one of the 4 corners is an easy way to move around because you may be familiar with what's in that general area, and then you can circle your finger around until you find the option that you're looking for. So taking your finger and dragging it around the screen is a simple way of finding out where you are, or a way of locating an item. The next single finger gesture is the flick. Now the flick is a very important gesture to master. And the flick is essentially just taking your finger, putting it on the screen, and flicking left or right.
Clock. Maps. Clock. 8:17 p.m.
Notice,
Tap to open.
notice you don't have to have your finger on the item you're looking for. You can flick the screen anywhere on the screen to go to one item or the next. You just flick it quickly, left or right, and it'll go from the item that was just announced to the item to the right or left of that item. When you flick, you want to make sure that you're flicking in the direction that you want your focus to go. And when I say focus, I mean the voiceover cursor. And the voiceover cursor and being the focus is where you are right now, where you could cause an action to happen. So the trick with flicking the screen is flicking it in just enough distance on the screen so that VoiceOver knows which way you want it to go. One of the pitfalls is flicking the screen a longer distance than necessary. The problem with that is if you do that, your finger may end up going slower sometime in that process, and if your finger goes too slow, then the focus may come below where your finger is when it's on the screen, causing the order to get messed up. For example, right now my focus is in the second row on clock, and if
19 p.m.
if I correctly flick to the right,
Maps. Double tap to open.
it goes to Maps. Likewise, if I correctly flick to the left,
Clock. 8:19 p.m.
it's going to go to Clock.
Double tap to open.
But if I flick improperly, and now I'm going to flick to the right, and I'm going to go too slow,
Find my iPhone. Double tap to open.
you'll notice that the focus went to below where my finger was. So the trick here is you can't let your finger go still at any time as it's flicking the screen. You need to do a quick flick either left or right.
Clock. 8:19 p.m.
Again, if I just tap
Double
the screen,
to open. Contacts.
if I just tap the screen and I don't flick it, the focus is going to go wherever I tapped. So we want to flick left or right,
Clock. Contacts. Clock.
and it's a quick,
8:20 p.m.
smooth flick, left or right, to go in the direction you want to go. To practice this, I recommend starting from the top left-hand corner,
FaceTime.
and you can pick an app that you want to navigate to, such as music, which is usually in the bottom right-hand corner, and you keep flicking to the right until you get to that application, such as music, and then flick to the left until you go all the way back to the application in the top left-hand corner, the one that you started at. You'll know that you're able to master it when you don't hear the same applications over and over again. If you start to hear the same applications over and over again, then those are probably the applications that are below where your finger is flicking on the screen, because your finger may not be flicking fast enough, or you may be leaving it still on the screen, and then the focus will go to where your finger is. So your practice, I would recommend, again, starting in the top left-hand corner and flick to the right until you get to the app in the bottom right-hand corner.
Game Center.
And see there, I
Double
flicked
tap to open.
improperly, and the focus went to where my finger was. I'm going to go back to the top,
FaceTime.
and now flick to the right until I get to the bottom.
Phone, clock, map, video, no, remind, phone, game, iTunes, apps, find, setting, page, doc, mail, Safari, music.
Okay, then I get to the bottom right, now flick to the left to go back to the top.
Mail, page, set, find, apps, iTunes, game, phone, remote, no, video, map, clock, phone, calendar, FaceTime.
Now, I made that look easy, but you might find that that takes some time to master. Now, I've been demonstrating using a finger, my index finger. However, I recommend using the thumb. Now, it may not work for everybody, but the thumb has less joints than the finger, and there's less chance for error. Because of the tripod that I have set up to take this video, it's actually somewhat easier for me to use my finger because of where the legs on the tripod are. But to use my thumb, I just simply flick the screen.
Clock, map, clock, photo, camera, contact, clock, 8.
Now, one plus to using the thumb flick method with your phone is that when you're holding your phone, if you're using an index finger or any of your other fingers, you usually have to hold the phone with one hand and then take your finger on the other hand and flick the screen. However, if you use the thumb, you can hold the phone in one hand and use the thumb of that same hand and flick the screen. And this would leave your other hand open to carry things or do other things with. Unfortunately, some of our phones, the pluses, are fairly large, And that may not be an option for some people because it can be difficult to hold in one hand and flick with the thumb of that hand. However, there are those who can master it even with the larger phones, and if you can, I would recommend going with that method so that you would have a free hand. The next single finger gesture I'd like to go over is the double tap. So we've been navigating to these applications. When you're ready to open an application, you simply take one finger and double tap. So my voiceover cursor on the home screen is currently on the clock. If I want to open the clock, I simply take one finger or thumb and double tap.
Clock. Edit. Button. Edit the selected alarm.
Okay, so it now has brought me into the clock menu or the clock application. And while I'm doing this recording, I've been cutting off the voice using the two-finger single tap method, and that's just to make it easier for recording purposes so that you don't hear all the chatter from voiceover. To exit an application, you can just hit the home button to go back to your home screen.
Clock. 8:25.
So I would practice
Double tap to open.
flicking to applications,
Maps. Videos. Notes.
then using a single finger double tap to open that application.
No.
Again, you can exit an application by hitting your home button.
Notes. Double tap to open.
The next single finger gesture I'd like to go over is tapping twice and holding your finger on the screen to move an application around the screen. So I locate the application that I want to move. We're going to move reminders to the bottom row.
Reminders.
So I found reminders. I'm going to take one finger and I'm going to double tap and hold the screen.
Moving reminders.
So I brought reminders into focus. I took one finger, I double tapped it on the screen. On the second tap, I left it on the screen until it says editing moving reminders. Now I'm going to bring my finger down.
On App Store. Off App Store. Row 4. Column 2.
As you move it, you'll notice that it tells you where you're moving it to. When you bring the application to where you want it to go, just release your finger from the screen. And now the application is where I want it to be. If I want to put the application into a folder with another application, I simply double tap and hold again to select that application.
Moving reminders.
And your finger does not need to be on that application, just your focus, just the voiceover cursor. So now we're going to move that application and I'm going to put reminders
Column 2.
and calendar together.
Find my iPhone on photo booth. On clock. On calendar. We'll create folder with calendar. Creating productivity folder. Opening productivity.
Okay, so I drag the icon over the folder, over the application that I wanted to put it into a folder with, and then it said creating folder, and you hear a sound doo-doo, doo-doo, doo-doo. And then it opens up a folder and drops both applications in. There's also a name for that folder. And we'll go into this in more detail later on when we do the home screen recording. So then to exit that folder, I just simply hit my home button. Actually, I'm sorry, the home button, actually by pressing that, it turned off the editing mode. I can now hit my home button again to go back to the home screen. Okay. Now I can remove any of those applications by double tapping and holding them and dragging them outside of the folder. So let's open up that productivity folder in the top row.
Folder name, productivity. Closing productivity folder. Opening productivity folder. Productivity. Heading.
And I'll flick to the right until I find the application I want to remove from the folder.
Calendar. Saturday.
I'm going to double tap and hold.
Moving calendar.
And drag it either up.
1 in productivity folder. Calendar. Saturday.
I'm going to double tap and hold and drag it either up or to the left or down or to the right until I hear it say outside of productivity folder.
Moving calendar. Outside productivity folder. Hold finger for 5 seconds to close. Closing productivity folder.
Okay, so as I took it out of the productivity folder, it said outside of productivity folder, hold for 5 seconds to close. And then it removes it from the productivity folder and or the whatever folder it was, and then it takes you back to the home screen. And that folder's still there, and you would need to go into that folder to remove the application, the other application that's in there, if you'd like to get rid of that folder. Again, to get rid of editing mode or to exit editing mode, you just hit your home button. And again, we're going to get into the home screen management recording a little bit later, and that'll have these methods of moving applications around into folders in a little more detail. You can also move applications to other screens by dragging them to the side of the screen that you'd like to go, and then it'll take, and this is the main home screen, so you would need to go to the right because there are no screens to the left of the main home screen. And then you'd hold it on the edge and it would say approaching border, and then when it flips to the next screen, it would say home screen 1 of, or 2 of 2. And then it would quickly go 3 of 3, 4 of 4. So as soon as you hear it announce another screen, such as 2 of 2, if that's where you want it to go, you immediately let go of the screen. The next single finger gesture is swiping up or down. And that is done when you're using the rotor. And we'll go into the rotor a little bit more detail in the 2-finger flick gesture recording. I'm going to take so the rotor is activated by taking 2 fingers and turning it left or right on the screen, and you take 2 fingers as if you're turning a combination lock. I'm going to put them on the screen like I'm holding a combination lock dial, and I'm going to turn it. As I turn it, it will announce
volume,
the option, another option. It's a menu
speech rate,
that you can change the options as you turn the dial.
Volume.
So I've just put it on volume. If I flick up or down with 1 finger, and that's the gesture we're going over now. If I flick up or down with 1 finger, it's going to activate the volume option on the rotor. So flicking up or down can be done to change the rotor option. And I'm going to flick up to increase the volume.
85%, 90%.
And I'm going to flick down to decrease the volume.
85%, 80%.
There are other times that you are in what are called left-right sliders in some applications that can be activated by flicking up or down to change that slider. And that can be done for a variety of things, changing pages in a book, increasing magnification, and a variety of other things. I've done these recordings in this way by dividing up 1-finger gestures, 2-finger gestures, and 3-finger gestures so that you can see the difference of when you would use a 1-finger, a 2-finger, or a 3-finger gesture. Because I've gotten the question a lot, well, Jim, how can I tell the difference of when I need a 1, a 2, or a 3-finger gesture? And by breaking it up in this way, it becomes easier to get an understanding of when to do so. Enjoy.